Available to all, mandated for none. That sensible approach simply cannot prevail in radical leftist Joe Biden's America. No, in this cruel new state of totalitarian obedience, you will roll up your sleeve and you will take this jab and you will like it. And not just that, you will then show your damn papers, even to just get a bite to eat, or to attend class, or to keep your job. It happened to Newsmax's own Eric Bolling when he tried to go out today in New York City.
Hi, I'm filming this.
Okay.
Can I get a seat at the bar?
Do you have an ID and proof of vaccination?
No, what if I don't?
I would not be able to accommodate you.
I can't just find a seat at the bar?
Correct. I would need the ID and the proof of vaccination.
Come on.
I'm so sorry. You wouldn't be able to.
I have to have an ID too?
Correct.
There it is. Unbelievable.
And there it is, medical apartheid. Don't need an ID to vote in many parts of the United States, but you sure need a lot of ID now, a lot of different forms of ID simply to get a meal. Joe Biden is even sending government agents to knock on doors and to pressure people in their homes to accept the needle, while leaving America's metaphorical door wide open at our southern border. In July, over 212,000 illegals trespassed into our homeland, into the United States. And those are the ones that we know about. Now, their virus and their vaccine status, unknown and totally unverified. Think about that aspect of Biden's American carnage. A hardworking, regular dude in Queens, New York, cannot get a cheeseburger in a diner without first submitting to Fauci's Shot of the Month Club. But an uninvited, unwelcome alien from Guatemala can saunter across the border without ID, without papers, and will receive generous support and accommodation, including plane tickets to airports all over America at your expense, to compete with you in the job market and perhaps to take a seat next to your daughter in our public schools. Joining us now to discuss all these issues is the great Victor Davis Hanson of Stanford's Hoover Institute, where he's a senior fellow. Victor, thank you so much for joining us. I want to ask you particularly about this issue that I mentioned on Hispanics and polling, because I know that you have spent your entire life around multi-generational, hardworking, blue-collar Hispanic folks in Northern California. And I want to mention a couple polls specifically. I want to reiterate the one I mentioned in my introduction, which is on the economy, literally, and I tweeted this out today because I found it so fascinating. I'm a nerd, Victor, who studies the crosstabs in these polls. This one, for instance, is a 250-page poll in total. I think I read all of it. And what jumped out at me, which is why I circled it there and tweeted it out, you almost never see a zero. I mean, you literally just don't in polling. This country is so big and broad. There's always a few percent who will say yes to just about anything. Not one Hispanic described this economy as excellent, 0.0%. And then another poll released in your state of California, 54% of Hispanics say that they want to recall Gavin Newsom. And the main reason that Gavin Newsom is in trouble and that he may be recalled next month is because Hispanic voters have turned on him. So, Victor, my question for you is, do you believe that Hispanics are realizing that the Democratic Party of the 2020s simply has no place for them or other working class constituencies?
I think you're understanding that by every metric, the Democratic Party of today is for the very rich and the very poor, and they're emerging middle. And they're very concerned about the price of gasoline. Right out my window, it's about $4.70, 27 cents a kilowatt here. We're in a drought. No reservoirs were built the last 30 years. 60 million trees were not harvested, and they were green napalm for these fires. And then when you add the latest thing, and here in California, the Mexican-American people I talk to, they can't get labor for their small businesses, roofers, contractors, cement people. Everybody's staying home, and that's really contrary to the Mexican-American work ethic. Everybody works hard, and the idea that somebody would stay home, call the employer and say, pay me $22 an hour in cash for 3 or 4 hours while I get my supplemental, and that really strikes them. And then when you add the final insult to injury with the Newsom shutdown, and all of these working families don't have nannies and maids like the wealthy people on the coast. So when they shut down the economy, they have to stay home with their kids, and they don't like that. And so I think they look at the border, and the Democratic Party said, well, we gave you open borders. And they're looking at the border, and they're saying, you know what? Just what you said, Steve. These people are coming into our communities. They're not vaccinated. We don't know whether they have COVID. And a lot of them aren't even from Mexico. We don't have any ethnic affinity with a lot of these people. So it's a lose-lose situation. I think it's going to be 60% against Newsom in California among the Latino community.
Victor, can you believe as of tomorrow, we are 8 months into the disaster that is the Biden administration? It's hard to believe how much the country has changed in the past 8 months compared to where we were, say, last year or the year before. If 2016 was build the wall, 2020 was build back better, what are we looking at in 2024 to turn things around in terms of repairing this country?
Well, I think we're going to have to start. We're going to have to say, before you have a country, you have to have basic things, and that's like fuel. So we're going to have energy and pipelines and fracking and ANWR, and then we're going to say we have to have security. So we're going to have a new deterrent military, and we're going to have border security. Without security or fuel or food, you have nothing. And yet, so we don't have time for General Milley's going through the ranks looking for white rage, or General Secretary Austin's comments about alt-right. All of that is just for an affluent, leisured society. We're not that society anymore. We don't have time for that. And we can see it that when whether you're a CEO at Delta or American and you start weighing in on IDs in a particular state and you can't even guarantee your airlines have fuel, or that your wait lines when people phone are 6 or 7 hours for help, or the military doesn't know how many people or Americans are in Afghanistan, yet they have the time to lecture us on this woke stuff. I think people are saying, cut that out, get back to basics.
You just watched Newsmax TV, America's fastest growing cable news channel, now in more than 70 million homes. You can get Newsmax TV on your cable system or check your cable guide. And if your system doesn't carry Newsmax, call them, tell them you want Newsmax TV, because we're real news for real people.